Hi, this is Matthew Tringali with Smart Shield Property Management, and today we're going to answer the question, what is the average vacancy rate in the greater Charlotte, North Carolina area? So this is a number that obviously fluctuates over time with market conditions, but for quite a while now it's typically been in the 5 to 6% range. But there's some interesting things to note about this. As you get farther out in the more rural areas, that's when you can start to get up into the more 6 to 7% range. The other thing that's interesting to note here is in 2019, Charlotte has a lot of apartments coming online for the first time in and around the uptown area. And it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that and what it means for rental rates and vacancy rate. So what is vacancy rate and why should you care? So vacancy rate is something that's particularly helpful to look at with respect to multifamily when you have a lot of units up for rent and you can kind of get an idea of what your month will be on average over time. But if you just own one or a couple of single family residential units, it's more helpful to just think in terms of average length of tenancy. And so, what you typically see here is an average length of tenancy could be kind of anywhere from 2 to 4 years. And the factors that really contribute to that length of time, a lot of it is market condition related. So if you end up with a property that's a lower rent property, under $1,000 a month, then this is a tenant that will be a higher risk of eviction or abandonment. And that's okay, but you just need to factor that in when you factor in what you purchased the property for, and just make sure you have factored in those costs and that potential vacancy. Similarly, if you end up with a property that is more of a luxury property on the higher end of things, something that's in the $2,000 a month or higher rental price point, then you end up with somebody who probably is here temporarily on work, or somebody who just moved here and they're just renting for a year while they get their bearings and decide where they want to buy. If somebody can rent for $2,000 a month or higher, they're probably qualified to buy a house, and they probably will at some point. And so that can lead to shorter tenancy and quicker turnovers, which can be expensive in the long run. So you want to kind of try to hit that sweet spot of somebody who will be a well-qualified tenant, but somebody that will want to rent for a long time. Ideally, that tends to be kind of in the $1,200 to $1,600 a month range. So what we like to see is somebody that will stay for 3+ years. So once you have a sense of those numbers, then you can start to do the math and kind of figure out how you should factor these things in by dividing however many months out of, say, a 3-month period you think the property will be vacant. Now, of course, a lot of the vacancy also depends not just on market conditions, but on service deliverables to the tenant. So it really does matter if you're offering great service to your tenant, whether or not that tenant's going to want to renew. The number one reason tenants decide to renew or not is if their maintenance concerns are being addressed quickly. So you're going to want to make sure to really address those concerns or work with a property manager you know is going to do an excellent job. So sometimes that means spending a little extra money on something that may feel questionable at the time. It may feel like, well, I don't have to do that thing. Maybe I can save the money here and not do that thing for the tenant. But if that little extra thing is the thing that would get the tenant to renew when the lease is up next year, then it was well worth it to spend that money. Because the most expensive thing that can happen to you in owning a rental property is vacancy. It's very expensive. You'll deal with lost rent, typically for a month, sometimes 2, depending on the circumstances. You'll deal with the turnover costs, which will often include all new paint, maybe some new flooring, and if you're dealing with a property management company, they might have a releasing fee. It could cost you thousands of dollars. So it's really important that you work hard to get that tenant to renew the lease. That's a little bit about vacancy rates and why it should matter to you in the greater Charlotte area. If you have any questions about this, please give us a call. Smart Shield Property Management, the intelligent investor's choice.